Okay, the next section in the audit sheet is looking at the core technical setup within the Klaviyo backend. A lot of low-hanging fruit in this section here, so do not skip over it. Let's dive in here. So the very first one is your campaign sending default configuration. Is it set to send time or have you set it to schedule time? Let's go into Klaviyo quickly and I'll show you what this means. Where do you find this? You go into the settings of the backend and then you click on account and you go to messaging. So here you can see the two options here. There is schedule time and there is send time. By default, schedule time is the selected option. You can see there, okay? You want to perhaps set it to send time. What's the difference between the two? So let's say this particular brand, your client's brand, they schedule a lot of their campaigns well in advance, okay? Let's say 2-3 weeks in advance. When you set your target segmentation, you kind of lock it in with Klaviyo and Klaviyo will send it to that database. Okay. But when you set it to send time, what will happen is Klaviyo, between your schedule time and the time that it gets delivered or sent, some people might still join that segmentation within Klaviyo. All new people that join after you've scheduled the campaign, they will also be included in the send or receiving of the particular email. So this is very, very applicable if you schedule well in advance. This is this one. Okay. So set your score, make a note. This one is, next one is CSS optimization. Okay, you go into email, okay, and then you can see there it has been enabled. This is merely a way to essentially compress some of your CSS code that gets added within the email. So your coding part, your styling part, it helps with eliminating, clipping issues. So you want to enable this just because it does compress some of the code within your email builds. Okay, mark that. All good. Next one here is attribution setting. Are Apple privacy opens being excluded? So after the iOS 15 security upgrade or update, people can set on their mobile devices that they don't want to be tracked. Okay, you don't want those people to skew some of your data. So let's quickly find that within the particular settings. Okay, let me just quickly find it. Give me 1 second. Yep. You want to set it to this one, yeah, because then all opens and clicks, it excludes Apple privacy opens, meaning that there's a higher chance of having clean data within your Klaviyo reports when you think of open rates and click rates. So score that one. Okay, next one is your email tracking pixel placed at the top of the email. So if I go back to email tracking, yeah, email tracker position. So the default is at the bottom of the email content. You want to set it to top of email content, because if you set it to trigger at the bottom of an email, if it's a very long email and it gets truncated and there's a lot of clipping happening and someone's network is slow and they don't load the entire email, the tracking pixel might not fire and you might have some missing data within your Klaviyo data or reports. So it's best to just set it at the top, because usually an email loads from top to bottom, so there's a higher likelihood of the pixel getting loaded. So mark that. Next one is your metrics. Okay, your added to cart and your viewed product metrics. Are they set up correctly and are they working? Okay, especially when you've got a Shopify integration into Klaviyo. So you go to analytics, you go to metrics, and you merely type in viewed product, for instance, viewed product, go into that metric, and then look to see if you have spotted triggers for the last 7 days. You can see here it is triggering correctly every single day, so it seems to be working fine. In many cases, we see flat lines of the data here. That means that the metric or the tracking of this is broken. It could be on the Shopify theme side of things. It could be that the code has been implemented incorrectly. So look at that to see if it's working. Right, it's fine there. Anonymous visitor tracking. So you want to go back to your configuration, your settings. Okay, you want to go, I believe it's under data. You want to set this to enable anonymous visitor tracking, because how this works is if someone has been visiting your site, Klaviyo picked up that someone visited your site, but they weren't able to identify the person through that cookie, what will happen is whenever they sign up via the Klaviyo opt-in form, for instance, they will essentially stitch the data together to highlight some of the pages they have viewed historically before they've opted in. And then you can retarget them based off of their previous behavior and site activity. So enable this one so you can have better data stitching within the account. So that looks fine. Your preference pages, you want to go into your preference pages here under other. Yeah, you want to check to see if it's branded correctly. You want to check to see if you are collecting the right zero-party data and other data points, for instance birth dates or other preferences like send volumes and frequencies and so forth. And you also want to ensure that there is a success page. So if that's in order, yes, and give your suggestions. Smart sending time period. So let's quickly look at smart sending. If I go back here, go one back. Smart sending, just for your information, is a very sensitive matter because, again, there's no black and white answer to this. Sometimes people want to be quite aggressive with their smart send times. Sometimes people want to be more conservative, depending on the brand. But the default is usually very acceptable. Like someone will receive an email every 16 hours. Okay, that is very handy. Just because you don't want to over message your database, so you don't want to go way less than 16 hours. And you also want to ignore transactional messages, because then someone will receive transactional messages even within the smart sending time frame, and you don't want them to skip. You don't want them to skip the order confirmation emails just because they've received a welcome flow email right this second. So that's that one. That's that one. So that's acceptable. You then also want to look at form overlap. So there is a setting within Klaviyo where you can enable it so more than one form within Klaviyo cannot trigger at the same time. You want to find that, you want to enable it, just because we've seen cases where clients use more than one opt-in form within Klaviyo and then it triggers at the same time or a few seconds after one another, and it's very distracting and so on. So set that and ensure that that is in place. That is a big batch of low-hanging fruit stuff under core technical setup. Very, very handy stuff. Ensure that you have it in place